Today, I'll be sharing with you some beginner shading and texture techniques using these technical pens. Using these techniques will help add dimension and depth to your ink drawings even if you don't color them. They're very easy to do even if you're just starting out. So get your pens and feel free to practice along. Pause the video if you have to. Alright, so the first technique we're gonna do is the most basic one. It's called hatching. To do this, you just simply draw a bunch of lines in a single direction. You can use it on shading or adding some patterns on the surface. Typically, you fill the entire surface of hatching to depict tones. For shading, however, you will just fill the surface on areas where the shading will fall. To help you determine where you want your hatching to fall on the drawing, you can do it in pencil first. If you like to use it on shading, draw a shape which will serve as a border and add the hatching inside. Then erase the pencil guides. The amazing thing about this technique is that it's quite flexible. You don't necessarily need to draw straight lines. You can curve the lines in order to add volume and dimension to the drawing. You can also do light and dark tones using this. The distance between the lines determine how light or dark the shading is. If you want a lighter shading, position the lines a bit far away from each other and just do the opposite if you want a darker shading. You can also create some gradient effects with this technique. Start your hatching with the lines closer to each other and increase the distance slowly as you go along. It's also great to use in adding shading and texture to the hair. For lighter hair, just add hatching on areas where the shading usually falls, and if you want a darker hair, increase the surface area of the hatching. Now to add extra shading and texture on this, what we can do is add an extra hatching in another direction. This is called cross hatching because, well, you're forming a bunch of crosses. This provides a different looking texture compared to just doing a simple hatching. Like the simple hatching, the distance between the lines determines how light or dark the shading is. To give some variety and texture, you can do the cross hatching in various angles like so. Let's explore more ways to add texture using these pens. What we're gonna do is draw 3 tiny lines in one direction and then draw another 3 lines perpendicular to the previous one. Then we're just gonna repeat it, making sure that it's perpendicular to each other. The end result looks like patterns of a basket, hence it is called a basket weave. I like to use it on backdrops just so the illustration doesn't look barren. You're not really restricted to just using 3 lines. You can use as many lines as you want. You can also combine this with hatching to create more variety in texture. If you want to use this technique for adding tones, use tiny little lines like this. This does take a lot of effort though, so be warned. Now, this one is my favorite, especially when I want to cheat in drawing clothing patterns like laces. Basically, what you're gonna do is just scribble like a child. Just like in hatching, what I do is draw a border with a pencil and I would scribble the inside to create the pattern. You can also just fill the entire surface and create an interesting texture. This technique is perfect for curly hair and afros. For curly hair, what I do after I finish the outline is scribble over it so that the hair has a curly texture. Then after that, I would also use the scribble technique to add some shading. For black afros and curly hair, I would just fill the entire hair area with scribbles. The next technique we're going to discuss is good for rough surfaces like leather or rocks or oranges.
What? I can't think of any other samples, okay?
Anyway, if you see the texture of an orange, it's basically a bunch of dots. And that's what the technique is. You're just putting a bunch of dots on the paper. This is called stippling. I actually have seen people use this technique to create an entire illustration, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Kudos to them for the insane effort. Meanwhile, I'm just happy to use stippling for certain textures and shading. Just like hatching, the closer you put the dots together, the darker the effect would be. You can also use this to add some dirt on surfaces so that the subject doesn't look clean, which is good for a more gritty and darker setting. Now, this technique is similar to hatching, however, instead of just going in one direction, you draw the lines in random directions. I call it the first stroke. I don't really know what it's technically called, but first stroke sounds nice. It is what it is. It's used for furs and animals so they look fuzzy that you wanna hug them. I assume you know the drill at this point. The closer the line to each other, the darker the effect would be. This helps add dimension to the subject. Combining these techniques in your ink illustration can make it more interesting, especially when you're drawing backgrounds. You can also experiment with different thicknesses for added depth. See what other fun textures you can come up with. Another fun thing you can do is get a white pen like this and use these techniques on black areas for more interesting effects like stars or something. Remember to be open to experimentation, as this is one of the things that can help us improve our art. Speaking of experimenting, you can experiment drawing different body builds by following the tips I mentioned in this video. Click this right here to learn what they are, and I assure you, after you watch that, you'd be able to create unique characters.